Okay, so you're probably wondering why am I putting up this video for a third time? Well, long story short, it got copyright striked a few times, and after getting in touch with Brian Gannon, we managed to make some magic happen. So, long story short, the video's back, as you guys can see. If there's any other future complications, it'll be very obvious. But from here on out, things are looking gravy and there's something big coming along the way in the future. Um, just be patient. See ya.
Okay, hear me out. Not everyone is created equal, and we all have our strengths and weaknesses. Want to know what else has strengths and weaknesses? Chaotic creatures. Not every card is treated equally unless it is battle gear, and what such battle gear got me thinking about a whole bunch of other creatures and the world of chaotic. So join me, guys, as I talk about a whole bunch of nonsense that you either already knew or never knew. And let's answer the question: what would a human card look like in chaotic? Now, as I have previously stated, not all cards or people or whatever is created equal, but we could get pretty nerdy and mathy when needed. So, let's get started. Obviously, there's not a real way to measure courage, unlike strength and speed or even possibly wisdom. We'll get to that one a little later. Courage is defined as the ability to do something that frightens one or the strength to face the pain or grief. This means courage is more based on emotions and not actual force or brain power. I mean, well, kind of, but you get the concept. I argue bravery could come from within, and obviously fear can alter courage, such as in the case of Lord von Blut's effect and his retrained version both having to target one's courage to achieve an effect. Sometimes this works out, and sometimes it doesn't, and if you don't have the right gear or what have you, it could seriously mess up your game. And speaking of gear, this is a good segue to the next stat. Power is defined as many things, such as the ability to do something, to act in a particular way, the capacity or ability to direct the influence and behavior of others over the course of such events, which I guess that's where Lord von Blut reigns supreme, but enough of that guy. It's also defined as a political or social authority or control, especially that's exercised by a government, etc., etc. But today, for the purposes of this video, we're referring to the raw strength or the ability to see how much one can lift or carry, which brings us to a card that got me wanting to do this video in the first place. The Baratheon Axe is a battle gear which has the flavor text, what takes 20 to wield, Rothar swings with one arm. I'm gonna say 20 means 20 generic soldiers, and Rothar, he himself, is an underworld creature. The average Joe could bench press 135 pounds without prior training. However, we're talking about chaotic, where everything's taken to the extreme, and the average Joe could deadlift 155 pounds. Given any Rothar card has a minimum stat of 80 power, and it takes 20 normal guys to lift this means Rothar can lift with one arm, it takes 20 guys to lift it. So a single human card, under that assumption, should have a strength of 4, because 80 divided by 4, or rather 80 divided by 20 is 4. However, since chaotic goes by 5s, I'll be generous and say 5. This doesn't seem much, but according to math, this means every 1 point of power in chaotic, it's the equivalent of 7.75 pounds. The strongest person in the world is known to be able to lift around 903.895 pounds, which will round up to 904 for the sake of math, meaning that his stat power should be 113, which will round up to 115 because 5s. I cannot speak for how much battle gear weighs from gear to gear, but yeah, take that with what you will. So this means our perfect human card so far has X courage and 155 power. Let's move to wisdom. As stated before, wisdom is a bit harder to measure. Wisdom by definition is stated as the quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment, and the quality of being wise. For many, this could be opinionated from person to person. However, most players have agreed that this could be chalked up to intelligence. With this in mind, let's compare the creature who is argued to have the greatest wisdom in the overworld to the smartest guy around, Nandrin and Albert Einstein. I understand. Yes, I am aware of William James Sidis. However, he was only possibly the smartest guy with an IQ of 260. However, this isn't confirmed, so we're not going to go with his comparison. Albert Einstein, with his IQ of supposedly being 160, yes, he had a test score of 162, but averages to 160. We'll use him. Nandrin should easily be compared to him and could even be smarter than him, as Nandrin could literally do music and such, and apparently teaches it. On an average, scientists have an IQ of 125, whereas teachers have 115 on average, which is good because Einstein had a score of 160, so that checks out. Given that Nandrin has a minimum wisdom score of 85, suggesting he is smarter than old Albert here, we went with the strongest human could be would be 5. The smartest human alone would be 5 with an IQ of 70, which represents 95% of the population. This means Einstein would have a stat of 15, which doesn't sound like it makes sense, but that's because this also means Nandrin should have an IQ of 5,950 minimum. Yeah, that's a bit chaotic, but hey, based on the math, not IQ points, and no character brings up, my next point. Yes, there are creatures with 40 wisdom, which means that they should have an IQ of 2,800, but as stated before, this can be chalked up to experience and how wise you are, not smart. So yeah, take that with what you will. Our perfect human card should now have X courage, 155 power, and 15 wisdom if we use Albert's score. Now, let's look at our final stat, speed. Now, when it comes to speed, obviously we're regarding on how fast one can move. There's a card known as the Charnock, which has the flavor text, as Orth whizzed by Господин to win the race and their wager, Господин regretted agreeing to give Orth naming rights to his next child. So apparently this means Господин has a kid, but we don't know who he is or if he's alive, We kind of need some answers, but in due time. The two creatures stated on this card are Orth and Господин. Orth is a rock elemental with a minimum speed of 10, whereas Господин is a blue scaly antelope-looking thing with a minimum speed of 90. Since the average human runs at 16 miles an hour and Orth has a speed of 10, we're going to assume that his speed is doubled at 32 miles an hour. Господин would be able to run, in this case, at 1,440 miles an hour. The fastest human is known to clock in at 27 miles an hour, which means his speed would be around 1.6, rounding up to 2 in terms of chaotic stats. However, since chaotic goes by 5s, as previously stated, we're going to be sitting it at 5 since it is closer to 2, and I don't think a 0 speed creature can move. That's just a statue. Our perfect human card should now, in this case, should have X courage, 115 power, 15 wisdom, and 5 speed. With our human card now being scanned, now there comes that last one, energy. Energy varies from creature to creature, but we all know it as life or your health. Humans can die for all kinds of reasons, and so do creatures, but it generally chalks up to, death. How dense one thing cannot be truly measured. However, especially in chaotic, so we're going to also say X to this stat as well. Hey, I'm jumping in the middle of this video. I'm actually in the process of editing it right now. I realized in the energy part of the video, I kind of fumbled what I was trying to say. What I was trying to say is energy essentially can't be measured the same way courage can't be measured, because energy equals life, but life could also mean like how dense you are, and that essentially can't be measured. So with that being said, the stat I'll put as X. And with that, we've done it. Our perfect human chaotic card now has the stats of X courage, 115 power, 15 wisdom, 5 speed, and X energy. Man, humans are really funny, aren't they? But with this in mind, courage and energy can be anything. But let's say they're both at max 120 according to various playmats. This means the human is either the best card to have for courage and power, or just an okay creature at best. Courage and energy can't really be determined, but at the same time, humans are capable of remarkable things, and so are the creatures in chaotic. But with this being said, what do you think of all this verbal barf of knowledge? What did you take away from all this? Is there some math that I got wrong about? I'm sure I was, and you're going to call me an idiot down in the comments below. And you know what? That's okay. I'm used to it. But be sure to comment on what kind of deck this creature would be good for, and subscribe to the channel to get all kinds of chaotic goodness for your feed and your life in general. Share this so people can learn about chaotic and possibly get more people involved. Have yourselves a good day, be happy, be healthy, and always remember, when in doubt, get chaotic.